Hi there. So, in this short video, we'll talk about what is row movement and what is row chaining, what is impact. So, one of my follower has asked me this question. So, let's look at it. What is row movement? As the name itself indicates that moving the row, but where are we moving the row? Moving the row from one block to another block is called as row movement. So, why does it happen and what is the disadvantage of it? So think of that, we have defined the size of a block as 8 KB and our row size is about 3 KB, and we already have stored four rows in it, and that is leading up to 8 KB. That means there is no much space that is left in the current block where the row is stored. And in future, whenever we perform an update, because it cannot accommodate the updated values in the same block, it will try to rewrite and move the data from one block to another block, so that in future when we want to retrieve, we can read entire data of a row from the same block. So this is called as row movement, where the row is getting moved from one block to another block. So what is the disadvantage with this? The disadvantage is, because we are moving the data from one block to another block, it takes time, and that's a IO, which is nothing but input and output, which is nothing but like we have to literally read the data and then put into another block, which takes time and impacts the database performance. Frequent writes are not a good sign for the database until unless we are trying to perform new insert, whereas the row movement is not ideal. And the next thing is row chaining. So row chaining is something again similar to the row movement, but what happens is, think of like we have defined the block size as 8 KB. However, my row size is going to go beyond 8 KB. Let's say that it's going to go up to 20 KB. In those kind of scenarios, my data will persist in multiple blocks. So if you look at this one as an example, my first row was inserted into block 1, and then it has header and footer, and in the footer I am storing that the same row continued to be stored in block 2 as well, and then here I have footer which is pointing to block 3, indicating that there is even more data which is stored in block 3. So what is the disadvantage or advantage with this? There is no advantage ideally. There is a disadvantage that whenever I want to read my data, I have to read from three different blocks and they cannot be read in parallel. The reason is, until unless I read the first block, I don't get to know where is my block where the data is stored. And the similar way, until unless I read block 2, I don't know where is the subsequent values that are stored of the same row, which is nothing but block 3. So this row of chain has to be performed, which degrades the performance, and this is not ideal. In these kind of scenarios, we'll have to increase the size of our table space and its block size, not the table space size, sorry. The block size has to be increased from 8 KB to probably some optimal value. So how do we know that to what value we have to increase? So if you go to the database, yesterday when I was talking about dictionary tables, I also spoke about db underscore tables. So in this db underscore tables, there is something called average underscore row length. And if I just quickly run this, here we can see that average row length, this is 98 bytes. Whatever the value you see here, it is in bytes. So I have a small table that I have created, which is nothing but block test. Let me quickly query this and show you. And if you see here, I only have two columns. Just for these two values, two columns and these two values, each row is taking about 98 bytes. So imagine that for two columns, if it is taking, then what if you have 200 to 250 columns? Then the block size of 8 KB is not optimal. We'll have to increase it further, right? So that's the indication that, like, whenever we have row chaining forming, then we'll have to increase the block size. Now, how do we find out that there is a row chaining that is happening? So we can find it out whenever we run a query. There is a wait event called db scattered read in Oracle database. We have something called wait events, which means that technically it is trying to say what operation it is performing in the database right now. And if you see that wait event as db scattered read, that means it is trying to read from multiple blocks. That means there is a row chain, and it's a bad sign for us, right? I hope it helps. In case if you have any more questions, feel free to comment. on this video, and I'll be there to help you. Thank you. Have a good day.